So in this video, I wanted to take a quick look at this Tomoe River paper. Basically, this is high-end fountain pen paper from a company called Tomoe River Paper, also known as Tomoegawa products. But anyway, what it comes down to is this is fancy paper that's really ideally suited for fountain pen users. This is the higher end version of it. It's a 68 grams per square meter. I also have it in this small pad, which is 52 grams per square meter. This is obviously, the 52 is lighter and more common. The 68 is like sort of like the higher end, heavier weight version. So if you're not familiar with the paper, it's generally a pretty lightweight paper. You know, 52 grams per square meter, 68 grams. That's like much lighter than you would commonly see. A more common paper would be like 80 or 90 grams per square meter. The paper has some interesting qualities. It's well, what you like about it is that it has very little bleed through. So that is basically, it doesn't get to the other side or show through. It doesn't do much feathering. When you do a line, that line maintains its integrity. It doesn't trace off with the little pieces of the paper, the little fibers. It doesn't follow those fibers along. Again, unlimited show through and limited bleeding, stuff like that. It also really is very ink resistant, so it's going to show off the qualities of the ink. It's sold in a couple different varieties. The main thing is that it's sold in 68 or 52 grams per square meter. Sold in sheets and a few different notepads. It's different sizes. Like this is a pretty standard size. This is like I believe an A4. Let's see if it says, yeah, A4, like a standard notepad size, or say notebook size. It's sold in smaller pads like this. It's fairly expensive here in the US. A pad like this, which is only 50 sheets, might be like $16. So gotta keep that in mind. And it's often used for like calligraphy or correspondence, you know, writing a letter to someone. And then here's just one of the sheets from that pad. I did some writing samples to sort of show off how it works. And we could run through some of them. Again, this is the 68 grams per square meter. In a second, we'll look at the 52. So here's a Kaweco double broad. You can see really nice lines, really shows off the color, that dark blue color. And here's the double broad. Here you can see it above, but if you put it down on the paper, you can barely see it. This plumix is coming through, but only because I really had to write hard, because my nib was not working well. But here you can see very little bleed through or show through on that 68 grams per square meter. Still, the paper is light, so you gotta keep that in mind. It's very smooth paper. Maybe not the smoothest out there, but it's very smooth, so very little feedback. And it's very delicate. So it's like almost like a tissue paper where any little distress to the paper will be maintained. These are just like, that's barely moving it, and you can see that crease is still there. Not a huge deal, but it's very prone to crinkling. Here's a roller ball. It's really not what the paper is used for, but it works really well in that Easy Flow 9000 broad. Here's a TWSBI Go broad. That's putting a lot of ink down, and you can start to see some of the nicer qualities of that pen are going to start showing through. So basically, you could see the G there and the B. You're seeing some color variation, and this paper has a lot of ink resistance, so that means very slow drying times, but you will see a lot of nice color variance coming out. Here's a Diamond, Blue Black, Bung Dandyism. That's a dark green. So if you're not picking up the green, then it's down to my camera work. But it's worth keeping in mind that this is just a difficult way to show off the qualities of an ink. Here we have a Henry David Thoreau, Golden Pond. And now you probably start to see some of the sheen qualities to this ink. And like right there, you can really see the sheen. That ink doesn't have any sort of like glitter or metallic in it, but it does have a sheen quality, and the paper is really good at showing that off. It's not always going to look as in your face as it does right now. That has to do with the reflection of the lighting. But as you're reading this ink, reading the words on the paper, you will pick up a little bit of that sheen, and you could really see it on this paper where you won't see it on something that's it's more absorbent. Here's a Krishna Xmas Eve. Again, we're seeing that nice sheen there. Oster Fire and Ice. Now we're seeing a lot of color variation. If you look at the stroke of that O or the F, you're seeing, again, a lot of color variation. And as we look over here, not only seeing color variation, but we're seeing sheen at the ends there. And maybe you could pick up a little bit of sort of red tones, which give the Fire and Ice its name. You could definitely see it over here now. And that is something that the paper is really going to show off. And then some standard inks, Konpeki. Again, very little color. I guess some color variation, but no sheen. That's not something that happens with every ink. It's not a magic trick. It's just something some inks have, and this paper shows off. And here we have Kirigara, something like that, from Sailor, which is a black pigmented ink. And really all you pick up here is just a deep, dark black. Some brown inks, they look really good. Again, a lot of color variation there. Here's an Organics Hemingway. Good color variation. Some sheening. Sorry. And now I had done some paper tests with the paper just to remind myself that after about 10 seconds, the ink is still very wet. And the 68 grams per square meter is more absorbent than the 52, but it definitely stays wet for a long time. And now I want to move over to the 52 and see how that compares. This paper is much thinner, and it definitely just it feels like you're writing on tissue paper. Let's see, I did some samples for this. Tear that out, and you could see when I move it around, you can see it has a lighter weight feel. You could see the ink, your hands can go right through. It's just a super light paper. So you gotta keep that in mind. That said, the 52 has some qualities that are a little bit better than the 68. To me, it feels a little bit smoother, and I tend to prefer writing on the 52. I feel like its handling of the ink is a little bit more exaggerated, which is the whole point of this paper, is the way it deals with the ink. See how we can make out some of those colors. Definitely seeing more color variation for something like that magnetic blue. Really nice coloring on the HDT Walden Pond, Henry David Thoreau Walden Pond, and then even perhaps more shine or sheen than before. There's that Lake of Fire, and here are the sort of more samples. So, paper is a tough thing. I think that's why I tend to write more about pens or cover more pens on the channel, because paper has a lot to do with the feel, and it's hard to see the difference. But really what it comes down to is that this paper has really great ink resistance, which means really awesome coloring and great sheen, but slow drying times, and it's expensive. And as you can see, when you crinkle it, it's very fragile. It's good for letter writing. If you want to ever consider writing on the back, you have to get the 68. On the 52, you have a lot of ghosting. Let's just flip those two over and we can see. Check out the ghosting over here. Definitely a fair bit of show through. It's much worse when you pick it up, obviously. So we can't go by that. We'll do it on down here on the pad. I definitely see a lot of ghosting here, and maybe that bothers you, maybe it doesn't. But once you go to the 68, you basically see none over here. And there's a lot of writing on that side from some very broad and double broad inks, pens rather. Here is the only part where I saw it, and that's because I really etched it in with that stub nib. But if you ever want to consider writing on the back, go with the 68. If all you care about is writing quality, then I would say go with the 52 and save some money. both are slow drying, and the chromatography element, the chromographic effects, whatever you call it, are probably a little bit more exaggerated on that 52. And I wanted to do a quick writing sample. Let's see what we have here. Here you go. This is a nice double broad rather. And this is the Tomoe River paper. Sometimes it's called the FP, like fountain pen paper. And this is with a TWSBI broad nib. And this is an Eco. But all those TWSBIs are the same. And then we'll put down a fair bit of ink, and we could see the pickup like that. Just really nice. And it really shows off anything that's gonna put down a lot of ink. But look, now we're getting to like what, 10, 12 seconds after. And look at that, a lot of smudging, even though this is not a very slow drying ink. But yeah, that's the Tomoe River paper. It's not great for day-to-day use, but if you really want to do some writing, you know, write down some quotes and see that ink really come through, then it's great for that. And then you can go ahead and look at your writing afterwards and see some very cool effects. Let's see if I have any samples here on that 52. And I don't even know what I was writing, just some quotes, but you can see some nice sheen there. You can see even the lighter inks come through. Darker inks look nice. But yeah, that about covers it. Tomoe River paper. Thanks for watching.